I'm here at the SEPA 2019 Congress with Itsvan Urban, who in a very short while is going to be talking about bone reconstruction, in particular in reference to membranes and the use of membranes. Itsvan, could you give us a little overview of the sort of materials that you're using now and the technological profile of these amazing membranes?
So, I'm using membranes for many years, and I'm selecting membranes based on their material and based on the defect. Mm-hmm. So we have smaller defects when we can place an implant and do like an augmentation, but we have larger defects, like ridge defects, and we categorize them as a horizontal or vertical. For a horizontal defect, most often we use a collagen membrane. And out of the collagen membranes, there are different types of collagen membranes. There's basically two classes. One is that is a native collagen membrane that they remove it from an animal, they sterilize it basically, and they use it. The other one, they remove it from an animal, they put it to like a chemical to modify it. Right. And they're what they call cross-linking. And that was developed a long time ago because there was the thought that the longer resorption time is very important, and this cross-linking making this membrane longer resorbable. So anyway, so that's the other class. And however, there is a different biological behavior of the soft tissues between the two membranes. The native membrane, which was not changed, stays native, is much better accepted by the body. Okay? And if you put it to a chemical, no wonder we change something that the body doesn't like. And so develops maybe foreign body reaction, and the native membrane can be vascularized. The blood vessels go through the native membrane. As the cross-link membranes, they don't really do that because they kind of like demarcate from the soft tissue and from the bone. So they just sit there, like I would say, dead. Yes. And so I'm using for this type of horizontal defects a native membrane because I want something that is more biocompatible and something that can be transvascularized.
But in the ongoing development of these membranes, the modifications from the native materials, there's obviously a very good reason for this.
I think it was a historical reason. It was kind of like a misconception. Really? The misconception was that the longer the resorption time, the better. Uh-huh. Okay, and that might be true, but it is more important that a membrane is more biocompatible.
Yes.
And allows the blood vessels, because we need a lot of blood vessels for the bone to form. So I think it was a misconception, and I don't think many companies are still doing that.
Really?
So more companies now turning to develop the native type of membranes.
Native organic type of membrane.
Yeah.
And what about, the actual use of the membranes in bone reconstruction? You're going to talk about that in your presentation, how you use these.
Yeah, so there's another type of defect, that's the vertical defect.
Right.
And for the vertical defect, you need something more stable.
Yes.
And which is usually a Teflon membrane, like a synthetic membrane, with some titanium mesh in there. And that if you look at that in the soft tissue, it's very interesting that if you compare it to native collagen, the Teflon membrane is basically similar in terms of biocompatibility. But of course, the blood vessels cannot go through these Teflon membranes. So in the last, I would say, 8 years, we did research in preclinical and clinical settings of what if we would modify these synthetic membranes, the Teflon membranes, in a way that they would behave with the blood vessels to allow to the own growth, the go through the blood vessels. So we kind of developed like a hybrid membrane, which have some mini holes, and then we cover that with a native collagen membrane, so we can do that for the vertical augmentation, that we use like something more stable, we call it the form stable, that is a Teflon membrane with some titanium in there and some perforations allowing the blood vessels. And we see much better bone quality with this.
And in terms of time, acceptance?
Yes, so very good to work with it, very good handling, and for the horizontal defects, we wait with the collagen membranes. We still wait about 6 months for the ridge to mature. Mm-hmm. And for the big defects, we wait 9, and we have a new defect. on the market, which is the extreme vertical deficiency caused by usually previous implant treatments that failed.
So this involves retreatment.
Yeah, and those defects are huge.
And yes, and then it becomes a question of controlling rather than curing, or?
So, we want to rebuild that too.
Yeah.
But now, if we looked in the literature, there's not much information about these defects, so they didn't really exist. And very few people treated them. And so, kind of like pioneering these type of defects. But they work.
So there we go, a potted version of Itsvan's presentation today on membranes, and nature's still winning, really, no?
Yeah, well, yes, nature is always winning.